Herbert made his way through the busy casbah streets of Algiers, his pale skin burned in the relentless African sun, and breathing the thick animal stench mixed with spices and incense was exhausting. It was no place for tourists, but Herbert had important business which would not be solved elsewhere. The old town was a labyrinth of narrow streets going up and down the hill. Finding your way was anything but easy. To keep the peace and control over the city, there were soldiers in every corner, or rather, it was supposed to be. The casbah remained a bastion of rebels, and simply posting guards would not help, as they would easily be picked off by assassins. Instead, there were large patrols of 15 or more men marching up and down the already crowded streets. Even as a European, Herbert was not spared from harassment. He was repeatedly being stopped by patrols asking for papers and had to listen to their friendly advice about not fraternizing with the locals. The upside of all this was that his French had improved tremendously these last few weeks. Farage stood outside the mosque waiting for his foreign friend. He was happy and excited, but did everything in his power to avoid appearing giddy in front of the French patrol. He knew how dangerous the city had become since the French arrived and did not want to draw attention to himself. Tension was high, and if the French soldiers would suspect that something has gone awry, they wouldn't hesitate to clear the streets and imprison anyone who protested.
Farage,
said a pleased voice from behind him.
Herbert!
Farage hugged his friend. They stood there for a moment, clapping backs brotherly.
So many years, my friend! So many years!
I'm so happy to see you again. But this is not the place for pleasantries. Do you have somewhere we can go?
Of course! Follow me!
They made their way towards the harbor and took an abrupt turn into an even narrower alleyway.
I made good time,
said Herbert, looking at his gold watch.
Oh, really, did you?
Yes, look, not even 6 o'clock.
Farage stood and looked at the wind-up pocket watch. He turned the screw connected to the spring and tapped at the glass. The arms started turning again. Farage set the clock to show the right time.
There you go, my friend.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Don't worry. Did you have trouble finding the mosque?
It was a splendid idea to find each other by looking for the minaret tower, but the streets are so unpredictable. As soon as I thought I had arrived, the street would go off in a different direction. It took me quite some time to find a way leading all the way to the mosque.
Sounds like a lot of casbah.
They arrived on the other side of the alleyway, a larger and much busier street. Peddlers and merchants moved their wares in a long and disjointed street market.
Do you need anything? I have a cousin selling the finest carpets in Algiers. Or maybe a new watch.
Ha! Thank you, but I'm trying to plan a trip to the desert.
Farage stood and looked serious for a moment.
Are you going, Herbert? Are you really?
Signed and paid for by the British Museum.
You crazy infidel! How do you do it?
I told them I had a map,
said Herbert with a straight face. Farage seemed to lose his steam, replacing his joy with determination.
We shouldn't be talking about this in the streets. Come, this way.
Captain Ambroise of the French army moved his patrol through the busy harbor. Calling it instinct or experience, he knew something was afoot. There was something about the merchandise the loaders moved. Why were there so many sealed crates? The majority of the goods shipped to Algiers was grain and oil. Barrels and sacks was a common sight, not unmarked board crates.
You there!
Ambrose called out to a loader on the docks.
What are you moving?
I don't know. It's not mine.
I need to see these custom slips for these items immediately.
The words fell on deaf ears. The men kept moving the crates. Ambroise followed the men carrying the crates with his eyes. They all moved goods from a single sebek, a small and fast ship common in these parts of the world. Ambroise eyed the growing pile of crates on the docks.
Is there a problem, Captain?
Perhaps. Are these yours?
Yes, they are.
The man nodded to his workers to start loading the crates on a wagon.
Nobody touches the crates! Until I get some answers around here.
My name is Abdul Khadir Bahji, and here is my papers. Identification, customs, and tariff slip.
Open one.
Captain, they have already been checked and accounted for by the customs. The customs controlled by your government.
I don't care. Open one.
Ambrose gestured to his men.
Captain, you are performing criminal act by opening that crate. It is not your business.
My business is the casbah and what you are trying to smuggle into it.
No need to get upset, Captain. It says so right on the customs slip. Foodstuff.
The crates creaked as the soldiers cracked it open.
Captain,
Said one of the soldiers.
it's grain, sir.
Bahji and Ambrose looked at the long open crate. It looked like a small coffin filled with grain. Ambrose noticed that Bahji held his breath a moment before he exhaled. Ambrose turned around and kicked the open crate over. The grain poured out, exposing a stack of rifles. Farage poured Herbert some tea and sat down on a pillowed seat. Herbert looked awkward sitting on the floor. Farage snickered at his attempt at keeping a straight back.
I'm glad my troubles entertain you. Posture is important, you know.
You need more pillows?
Oh, thank you. I will be all right.
Herbert glanced around the room. It was comfortable as a drawing room, but it looked nothing like the ones found in Europe.
Locum?
Farage held out a plate of sweets.
Delights? Don't mind if I do.
Said Herbert, and picked up one of the sweets.
I forgot, you are British. Turkish delights, am I right?
Yes, that's what we call them.
Herbert finished his delight and quickly went for another one.
Careful with the rose-flavored ones. They are said to ease your mind, but also make you forget things.
I'm old. My memory is already abandoning ship.
Herbert, do you really think you will be able to pull this off?
The expedition? Most certainly.
What have you told your people in London?
The truth. That we are going to find the legendary tomb of Tin Hinan.
Farage was worried that Herbert did not fully appreciate the situation.
Herbert, I told you, it is bigger than that.
Farage, don't worry. I remember what you told me about Johann Weir and his research. I know you think it is important.
Farage smiled, silly that he would ever doubt his friend.
You realize what this means? They could all be travelers. Even God could be a concept from the beyond, brought to us by missionaries, like it was brought to the natives of the Americans. Maybe they are speaking to him like an ordinary man. Wouldn't you like to speak to, with the Almighty?
Herbert fell silent. He didn't know how to handle religion. The Church of England had never impressed him, and when he had looked beyond the borders of the kingdom, all religions became mythical. He had never found God, and it concerned him. He wanted to sympathize with Farage, but couldn't.
Well, I guess we'll find out.
Farage calmed down once again, ashamed to have worked himself up so much, especially in front of a friend with such composure.
Herbert never got riled up,
thought Farage. He produced a map and splayed it on the floor in front of them. It was a printed map of the northern desert. Farage had made extensive notes on it describing the exact route.
Where is all this information from?
Said Herbert, pointing at the notes.
From here and there, but...
Farage turned the map over, revealing the back covered in sketches and more notes.
These are all from where?
Herbert pointed at a star shape.
What is this?
Where describes it as a marker.
For what?
Who knows?
Farage pointed at another sketch of a circle and a hand.
Now this is the key.
Ambroise ordered the men to fire at the fleeing rebels. Raiding Abdal-Qadir's Bahji's granaries and storehouses had stirred up a hornet's nest of resistance. Countless of French soldiers had reinforced the already crowded battle, and the harbor had turned into a killing field. The rebels scattered and fled into the narrow streets.
After them! Let's quench this rebellion once and for all!
Screamed Ambrose, and pushed his patrol up the Casbah hill. 4 young men suddenly invaded Farage's home. Herbert and Farage could hear them storm the entrance.
Uncle, you must run! They are killing everyone!
Shouted one of them from the other room. Farage got to his feet and see what it was all about. His nephew Bahji came into the room. Bahji pointed accusingly at Herbert.
Uncle, what are you doing? He is one of them! No, Bahji, he is not like them. He is English. He is European!
Bahji pulled a dagger and pushed Farage out of the way. Herbert didn't understand a word and feared for his life.
Bahji!
Called one of the men from the other room.
They're coming! We must go!
Don't hurt him, please!
The patrol was waiting patiently for their compatriots to lure out the rebels. 2 ranks were formed. 5 men in front kneeling, 5 men in the back standing. They had their rifles ready and waited for Ambrose's saber to come down, ordering them to shoot. The 4 rebels emerged from the house with a white man held as a hostage.
Put your weapons away or we kill this man!
Yelled Bahji, holding his knife demonstratively next to Herbert.
Please don't!
Cried Farage from the side.
Ready? Aim!
Called Ambrose to his men. The threat turned the rebels frantic, but had little time to react. The street was narrow. They were trapped. Farage stepped out between the 2 sides.
Stop this madness!
Ambrose let his saber fall in a swift movement.
Fire!
Farage felt himself hit the ground. What was happening? Everything had gone silent. His eyes focused. Bahji's lifeless body laid collapsed on the ground just a few feet from him. They had killed Bahji. What a waste of life! He tried to look around to see the others, but he couldn't move his head. Had they all been killed? Farage realized he wasn't feeling well, mostly because he didn't feel anything at all. He prayed that Herbert was safe.
Farage, can you hear me?
Yes, Herbert. I hear you, my friend. Are you all right?
Herbert knew it was bad. He took Farage's hand and held it close to his chest.
Herbert, you are unhurt. Saved by the color of your skin.
Herbert hung his head in shame.
Farewell, Farage, my friend.
Farage exhaled. His head fell back on the ground. Herbert reached out to close his eyelids.
The gas!
One of the soldiers kicked Herbert.
European!
Yelled Herbert.
Get out of here, you stupid Englishman, before I shoot you!
You just shot my friend!
The soldier fired a warning shot. Herbert quickened and fled into the narrow Casbah streets. He ran like never before, back to the hotel in the safety of his luxurious hotel room. Herbert sat with his assistant Daniel in the hotel restaurant. Daniel noticed that Herbert was quiet this evening, but thought little of it. He picked up the week-old London Times and began to read. It was the same article he had read the day before. "I think I'll be turning in. Good night, Professor." Herbert mumbled and made a small gesture with his hand. Daniel left and went upstairs. Ambrose came up to the table and dropped the map in front of Herbert. He sat down in Daniel's seat and took a sip from his drink. Herbert didn't know what to think. He quickly reached for the map. Before he could collect it, Ambrose tossed a stone onto the map. The gilded table below resonated with a clang. Herbert looked around with a slight panic and then down at the map with a star-shaped stone.
What is that?
That is my question. You are lucky there are so few Brits in Algeria, Professor.
What do you want?
I want to know what it is. And why is there a picture of this stone on the back of your map?
Herbert was speechless. He really didn't know much. Tin Hanan, was that it? He didn't believe that. There was more. It was that Tin Hanan might have been where she came from, where she went.
I understand. You wouldn't want to tell me. We are not exactly best friends. Know this. This stone has been in my family for something like 3 centuries, ever since the siege of Salai. It has fueled the men in my family with great spirit, but also madness. You know, inspiration to the point of obsession. I never really bought into the whole thing, but I must admit seeing you with this fills me with a sense of purpose and closure.
Are you giving this to me?
I'm not doing you a favor, Englishman. This is for my father, and my father's father, and so on. It is on you now. Good luck.
Herbert and the expedition left the next morning, heading off into the Algerian desert. He would never forget the pain of losing Farage or the strange meeting with the French officer. The map constantly reminding him of the sacrifices made and the stone. Determination lasting centuries.